Last summer, I stood before you and I was clear that all Portlanders deserve to feel and to be safe in their community. Today, I'm here to echo that statement, and I'm pleased to report on some of the incredible work that's been done to breathe life into those words. As you'll hear this morning, there are promising trends worth noting in the 2023 crime data resulting from our work to bolster public safety initiatives. Overall, crime in Portland continues to go down, and significantly so in some key categories. We're trending in the right direction. As you'll hear, this trend is a reflection of the dedication and the commitment of many people who love Portland and love Portlanders. People who want to save lives and livelihoods. People who are working to turn the page from a dark chapter to a bright and vibrant future. They deserve that acknowledgement and support from all of us for the hard work that they have done and the successes that they've achieved thus far. I'm impressed by and grateful for the hard work of all of our first responders here in the city of Portland, including the Portland Police Bureau, the Community Safety Division, the Seize Fire Team, the Office of Violence Prevention, and the many, many partners who collaborate with us and work hard every day to make Portland safer for all of us. While our work is not done, it's important to make clear that my resolve to keep this trend moving in the right direction is stronger than ever. These teams are dedicated to improving the lives of Portlanders and working with the community to prevent harm from happening in the first place. This work has culminated in public safety improvements in a variety of aspects, including a 23% reduction in homicides between 2022 and 2023, reductions in the number of dangerous and derelict RVs on the streets of Portland, with over 400 vehicles removed and demolished in 2023 compared to only 15 in 2017. This year, we've already taken 63 of these dangerous vehicles off the road, and we expect to reach a total of 450 by the end of the year. Significant reductions in auto and catalytic converter thefts. Retail theft missions to help support our community business partners have been successful. Reductions in property crimes and other criminal activity during foot patrols. Collaborative outreach amongst PPB's Central Bike Squad and behavioral health professionals. And significant reductions in gun violence. And although it's not directly related to public safety, it's also worth noting that the city's first temporary alternative shelter site has now transitioned nearly 100 individuals off the street and into permanent housing just since October. I'm going to turn this over to Chief Day in just a moment to speak in more detail about the Police Bureau's specific efforts and these positive public safety trends. But before I do, there's one more thing I need to say. Behind all of these efforts are ordinary people, ordinary Portlanders, people who work tirelessly under incredibly challenging, taxing, and potentially dangerous circumstances to save lives and livelihoods, whether it's through outreach to people who have a high risk of being engaged in or involved in violence, or whether it's holding people accountable who in fact cause harm to others. And that work, these people deserve far better than a false narrative promoted by anyone who does not share my optimistic view of the city of Portland's future. Portland has rallied, and I'm committed to maintaining this positive momentum for all of these people and the entirety of this community until my last minute in office. Thank you very much. I'll now turn this over to Portland Police Chief Bob Day.
Thank you.
Take it away, Bob.
You bet. Thank you, Mayor. So, famed automaker Henry Ford once said that coming together is a beginning, staying together is a progress, working together is success. And I'm not here to suggest that our numbers and statistics reflects success, but we are moving in the right direction, particularly in the area of crime. But it's really not just about crime, it's about how we do this as a community. I outlined last week for the Bureau my goals for 2024 around community, which means really transforming the dynamic between the Portland Police Bureau and the people that we serve, as well as an emphasis on crime and the reduction of fear of crime, and also around our organizational wellness and continued development of our personnel within the Police Bureau. And you'll see as we kind of walk through these numbers today that those goals are reflected in already some of the great work that the mayor has mentioned. I just want to continue to emphasize, as he did, this has been a collaborative process. I respect and admire the mayor's leadership over the last year, council coming together, really making an effort to partner with the Police Bureau and other public safety bureaus and the community to reflect some of these numbers that we're seeing go in the right direction. Mike Myers' leadership at the Community Safety Division, the Ceasefire Program, Office of Violence Prevention, and of course our community-based organizations. This is not about PPB. This is really exciting for me to be able to say that this is a large-scale collaborative effort that we're doing in partnership with many different organizations and community members. I also want to recognize when we talk about reduction in crime that there still is a real-world impact on those that were harmed in 2023. So as the mayor mentioned, homicides being down in the double digits in terms of percentages is a great accomplishment. But there's still over 70 people that lost their lives to homicidal violence last year. And I don't ever want to lose sight of that. When we talk about the numbers trending in the right direction, the experience that Portlanders have as it relates to crime is true, and it is their experience. And we want to honor and recognize the fact that we still have much work to do. I am encouraged at some of the numbers as we move forward. As the mayor's already mentioned about shootings being down, homicides being down, and we have some subject matter experts from the Bureau who can address that in more specifics. We have seen a decrease in motor vehicle thefts, largely attributed to our cooperation and partnership with OHSU. I really credit East Precinct, Lieutenant Staples, and others out there that were innovative in their approach, which is seeing a high number of vehicles recovered. We're also seeing now other agencies reaching out to us and asking and partnering with us. In fact, I'll be at a briefing on Friday with outside agencies that are observing what we're doing and trying to learn from that. So we're really creating a model that can be followed regionally, which is one of my goals around trying to continue to see this challenge that we have around crime reduction as a regional issue. It's not a Portland problem. And we've also experienced some of that regional cooperation around retail theft, where we've just did the missions over the holidays with Multnomah County and Gresham and the Port. I thank them for their support. We have seen an increased amount in reporting of shoplifting. Part of that is because we have been more intentional around retail theft in the past several months, as well as the fact that we are encouraging more reporting. So, of course, that also leads to an increased numbers of, as you see in your statistics, around theft. I do want to recognize the tragedy around our traffic numbers. Traffic fatalities were at a 30-year high last year. We had a couple of fatalities just over the evening last night. We had one of our police cars was rear-ended on 205. Those officers have been released from the hospital and are home recovering. But traffic will continue to be a priority, and it does fit into the conversation around crime and crime reduction. Also want to know that, just note that a lot of this good work was already established well before I came into office in October. I want to just really recognize the PPB Command, Chief Lavelle and his leadership, and the efforts that were already in place in conjunction with the mayor and the mayor's office prior to me stepping in. I am proud of the work that we did around the walking beats and the period of time that we spent downtown over that 45 days or so. Some of the numbers around that indicate also a decline in reported crime and calls for service in the areas where we were walking and being visible. They're small numbers, so we can do a lot with data, but still it's worth noting that that pilot project did demonstrate some positive results around numbers, but more importantly, it demonstrated positive results between police and community. I went out on 3 different occasions, had some great conversations with folks. We logged over 200 Portland Police personnel participated. We did over 300 walking beats at 875 hours, give or take, and had over 5,000 community engagements during that time period. And the feedback, not only from the mayor and from others that we heard in the community, but even organizationally, the experience for the police officers to be able to work and be a part of the community in such a positive way. And the mayor's already highlighted some of the other areas we've had success and will continue to build upon. Central Bike Squad, our partnership with OSP. In conjunction with OSP and other agencies, we're looking at some traffic issues, as I mentioned, to try and combat fatalities. So have we arrived? No. And this is not a victory lap. This is not something to celebrate, but it is something to recognize. And I really appreciate the mayor's comments and passion around that. You know, it's about the many hardworking folks in our community, in our public safety bureaus, and other city agencies that have really come together and demonstrated a commitment to this. So you have some statistics we can kind of jump into a little bit later, and we have some people from the police bureau that can maybe talk more about some of those other issues. But I want to turn it over to Mike Myers real quick. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief Day. Mayor, thanks for having me here today. I appreciate it. Thank you all for attending. My name is Mike Myers. I'm the Community Safety Transition Director for the City of Portland. We have been at this together for quite some time. You probably recall back in 2019, late 2019, a sudden surge in gun violence here in the City of Portland. If we look at 2019, 2020, 2021, leading into July of 2022, we had a 200% growth curve in gun violence in the City of Portland. Now, we were never the highest homicide rate of cities our size in the country, but we certainly had one of the highest growth rates in gun violence. It was staggering. And I can recall the mayor making the decision in the middle of 2022, in July of that year, to declare an emergency around gun violence. And the intent was to bring as many partners together as we could around a collaborative effort and build a strategy, a comprehensive strategy to reduce gun violence. And that started in July of 2022. We brought a team together. We'd meet almost daily. Many of the people that met here and were involved in that partnership are in the room today and here and available for questions. By December of 2022, we had flattened the curve, to use a public health term that you're probably familiar with. And leading into 2023, the goal was to start to drive gun violence down. And we put many different kinds of initiatives out there and built a lot of collaborative partners to do the work. And by the end of 2023, as Chief Day alluded to and the mayor discussed, we had a greater than 20% reduction in gun violence. But more importantly, many of you remember Safer Summer PDX, and you remember all of the provider partners for street-level outreach and intensive case management and all the money that we were using to expand out new services to help work with people that were involved in gun violence out in the community. And specifically, the strategy was built largely pointed toward one vulnerable population that was involved in most of the gun violence. And the question always came, how do we know that the investments that the council's making is working to reduce gun violence in this specific population? And we talk about young black men that may be related to group violence, being 6.5% of the population, but involved in 41% of the gun violence activity. We've seen a 37% decrease in gun violence in that group. That's huge. We've saved people's lives. These are individuals that likely would have been killed. And the credit goes to the Focused Intervention Team for Portland Police Bureau, the Enhanced Community Safety Team with Portland Police Bureau, the Office of Violence Prevention street-level outreach providers, the intensive case managers that work the cases every day. Sierra Ellis, the interim director for the Office of Violence Prevention, now the new ceasefire director, and the work that she's going to do through 2024 as we roll out this new initiative and do custom notifications will have a huge impact, and we think even drive gun violence down further. The Safe Blocks team, who did place-based investment improvements around hotspots around the city, our work with Multnomah County's Public Health and the District Attorney's Office, all collaborating in a structure, in a room downstairs, was the Operations Center where we would meet regularly to talk about how we were going to work together to reduce gun violence. We have a long way to go. January was a tough month. We had 5, I think, homicides or greater already this month. We know we still have work to do in the downtown area. We have a long way to go. So we're not done yet, and we recognize that. One of the other things that the mayor did in 2021 was declare an emergency around houselessness, if you remember that. There was again, several areas where the mayor wanted to address individuals living on the streets of Portland and how we might be able to do something different than we were doing before. Last year, we started the work on building out our very first temporary alternative shelter site. We have never done that before in the city of Portland. Again, downstairs in the operations center, I had an office down there, and every day that construction team met to design out the very first temporary alternative shelter site based on the description from people that were living houses on where they felt like they wanted to go and how they wanted to live. What would it take to get them from the street to come and live in a different location that was safe, where we could provide services and get them from the street into someplace else where we can start doing some preparation work to move them into the housing that the mayor talked about. All that was done in a very short period of time, and a lot of credit. I wanted to just say this, a lot of credit to the mayor's office, Skylar Brocker-Knapp, Sarah Morrissey, Hank Smith. We had Terry Whitehill, Michelle Ladd, and a dear colleague, friend of mine, Nate DeCara, who worked tirelessly to put that first temporary alternative shelter site together, and it is at capacity on a regular basis. So a story to kind of go along with this, to kind of talk about how I believe the success can be illustrated. When the Street Services Coordination Center was developed in 2021 to go out and start cleaning campsites, and we would clean 80 to 100 camps a week, we would always send out navigation teams when we would post the removal of the camp. But 8 to 9 out of 10 people did not trust us and would not take any shelter. Until we built the temporary alternative shelter site, designed and based on their ideas. 33rd Street, many of you reported on this 33rd Street project we managed about a month ago, 2 months ago. Dozens of RVs and cars removed from the site, but most importantly, 57 people from that site went into temporary alternative shelter sites, into the pods, into like these mini shelters, and Safe Rest Villages. That was unprecedented. We had never had that kind of trust and a commitment and interest in moving off the street into sheltering like that. And in the last 2 or 3 months, over what I'm hearing is close to 100 individuals moving from alternative shelter sites now into housing. That's what we've always wanted. The ability to move individuals from the street, voluntarily offer the opportunity to come from the street into alternative shelter sites, and from there receive the services and move into housing. And it's working. And it's because we started to cooperate and build these coordinated efforts. One of you asked me in late 2022, if you could have one word that would describe your feeling for 2023, I said optimism. I'm optimistic we can flatten the curve on gun violence, we can get the task sites open, we can provide something better for individuals living in the street, we can move people into housing. I know we can do it. If you ask me today what my word is for 2024, I would tell you it's 2 words, it's continued optimism. The momentum is here. We've achieved the tipping point, and I think we're on the right path. We have a long way to go, but all of us, and I mean all of us here in this room, every one of you and us in the community, has made a commitment that is changing the way Portland is driving its success. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Mayor and Chief, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
Great. Let's open it up for questions. We've got a whole group of folks here that can help answer questions on a variety of topics.
And please just state your name and who you're with and who you want to ask a question.
We'll just start, yeah, we'll work our way over. Go ahead.
Zane Sparling, Chief Dave, if you don't mind, or the mayor, you can both speak on this. You mentioned the homicide count going down. Of course, the police bureau doesn't include officer-involved shootings in its homicide count. The Oregonian does, so our numbers disagree. Regardless, 5 homicides not involving the police. That'd be 60 in this year. That would be well above pre-pandemic levels. If you would get up to 7, that's 80 homicides in a year if the trend continues. So is there really call for optimism if we're looking for another year that's going to be fairly deadly, and certainly far more deadly than Portland was just back in 2015?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I mean, Mike and I have these conversations, and when I was sworn in, we talked about hope. And to me, you know, hope is active. Hope is moving forward. And what you just hear outlined today is a message of hopefulness. The reality is the challenges are still significant. And so we are going to have to just keep our foot on the gas in terms of this effort. You know, the first thing I do in the morning, literally, when I put my feet on the floor, is look at my phone and look at the events of the night before. That's the very first thing I do when I start my day. Before I even get out of bed, I sit there and read my emails because I'm updated on the events of the night before. This is a high priority for all of us, and I appreciate the mayor's passion around, you know, all the way through the remainder of 2024. So, yes, it's not lost on me that we've had these events this month, and Mike already mentioned them. But we have a blueprint we're developing, and we've had some success. We've had some impact on those numbers. You know, we got a long ways to go, but I continue to remain hopeful that we're on the right path.
Mayor, it's a rainy January day. Most of the downtown office workers are still in their jammies at home on Zoom while we're here. So are you feeling optimism about the city as well?
I am, and I also want to address the question you asked the chief. We are fundamentally positioned differently today than we were in 2015. In 2015, we didn't have the Street Services Coordination Center to help get people off the street, unifying all of our first responders. We did not have the enhanced community safety team, which these guys support and work on to follow up on gun homicides with intense investigative capacity. We didn't have the focused intervention team, which provides prevention and intervention services around gun violence. We didn't have the Office of Violence Prevention anywhere near the capacity it currently has. We did not have the ceasefire model. We didn't have the credible community interveners to the degree that we have today, people who can speak with authority to people who are engaged in or victimized by gun violence. We didn't have nearly the number of community partners that we have into place today. So my optimism stems from the fact that we know what we need to do at the local level. We have allocated the resources to make it happen. And as the chief said, and as I indicated in my opening remarks, we're starting to see the trends moving in the right direction. That's what gives me hope, is that we're doing what we need to do at the local level to make this work. There are also some macro trends that we don't control. We obviously know that nationally there are economic issues, economic dislocation. We know that we have a massive influx of damaging drugs coming into our community. And also I would note that while some of the affiliated gun violence gets the lion's share of attention, and it probably should, a lot of that gun violence and many of the homicides are actually within the homeless community. And so the work that we're doing around street services coordination, the work we're doing around TASS, the work we're doing with Urban Alchemy around community outreach to try and connect people with services, I think that will also start to show good results in getting people into a better set of circumstances than what they're currently experiencing. So that's what gives me optimism. But as everybody has said, we're not sitting here popping champagne corks. We know we've got a lot of work to do. But what I want the community to know is we have responded, we've taken affirmative steps, we're working with many people in the community who have nothing to do with government, who care deeply about this issue, in the faith community, the nonprofit sector, individual community leaders, even individuals who have been previously gang involved, who want the next generation to have a better set of circumstances than what they experienced. We're all pulling in the same direction at the same time. That's what gives me optimism. And I totally forgot your second question, which was what?
You covered it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, go ahead. I guess, last year, Mayor, your office said you were backing off of the ShotSpotter program and going in a different direction to try to reduce gun violence. Can you talk a little bit about that or reiterate
sure.
what programs are in place? Are they largely outreach based, and what are you seeing?
So there are actually people in the room who live this who can speak much better to this. So I'll just be super brief. Our decision around ShotSpotter wasn't because we thought the model wasn't a valid model. It was about resource allocation. And frankly, we had a lot of other ideas that were on the table, including just building out our basic police capacity, focusing on the focused intervention team, making sure we had the investigative capacity in place, working on the ceasefire model, which is a tremendous amount of work that's been done by the Office of Violence Prevention. And so we just wanted to focus our efforts on that. And so it was really just a resource allocation decision. And Stephanie, I don't know if you or others have more
I
on
have
the,
Mike.
what are we doing? Mike?
Maybe you could explain the ceasefire model just a little bit. if
Sure.
that's okay.
Great.
Stephanie, would you please ceasefire?
I would say maybe the chief.
I'll get started and then we can explain ceasefire. So I touched on it briefly, but it is a pretty comprehensive strategic plan on how our strategic plan for the city of Portland, realizing that every city across the United States, the cities our size, had some form of plan on how to address gun violence based on their city and the structure of the city and the population. And we did as well. And I think I'll leave it to the police chief and his colleagues here to talk about their efforts around focused intervention and the investigations. I think in community safety, you largely are familiar with the Office of Violence Prevention. They operate in 5 general areas. You're familiar with the street level outreach. If we have individuals that are known associates to some of the activity, we enroll them in intensive case management. We have individuals that go to hospitals post-shooting to work with victims there and to kind of stop the cycle of harm and provide counseling there to make sure there's no retaliation. We have trauma and violence impacted families to help families after these incidents occur. We have an entire team that looks at hotspots around the city on where gun violence is occurring. We investigate those areas. We look for opportunities to do place-based improvements. We've had some demonstrated success there. We've earned a $2 million grant from the federal government to specifically apply it to a couple of different neighborhoods to do place-based improvements. These are all, we could go on and on. There's so much involved. Some have a big impact. The focused intervention team has a big impact on reducing gun violence. We'll do small pedestrian and street enhancements in a small area that just might have a small change and a small assistance in reducing gun violence, but all of it collectively matters, and that's the point. It's a comprehensive, collective approach to reducing gun violence, and that's what I think the common theme of the message is here today. And Stephanie, do you have a colleague, or do you want to talk about ceasefire? Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I can say just at a high level, ceasefire.
Identify yourself.
I'm sorry, Stephanie Howard. I'm the Mayor's Director of Community Safety. I like to think of the ceasefire program as the connective tissue between our police and our police bureau investigations and how we match people with resources that the city offers or that the city even is aware of. Our program director, Sierra Ellis, is directly and very actively involved in reviewing investigations, active investigations about shootings that happen each week with the police bureau and other public safety partners. Through those conversations, they're able to identify people who are at high risk of becoming either victimized or perpetrating gun violence. And what Sierra's role, in part, is to take that information, to take those folks, and then connect and coordinate with our Office of Violence Prevention to identify how are we going to make outreach to these people, what's going to be the best way to have a respectful and direct conversation with them so that we have the best chance of success in getting them the resources they need to change their behavior. So that's the ceasefire program. It lives sort of in between OVP and the PPP.
All right, go ahead, Blair.
Yeah, this one's from Mayor Wheeler. You talk of an overall reduction in crime. Does that include a reduction in Measure 110 violations?
I'll turn that over to the subject matter experts.
I don't know, I don't have that right in front of me. Mike?
We
I mean, I'm not asking you to come up with it right now. I'm just saying I got to defer to Mike on that in terms of specifics. So I don't have the 110 numbers in front of me, so maybe what are you looking for?
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
Measure 110 is a huge issue.
Right.
So is that something you can speak to? That doesn't seem like that is reducing anytime soon.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, those are difficult numbers to measure. I would say that we are seeing, at least the feedback I'm getting both from the organization, the bike patrol people that are interdicting this work downtown, as well as conversations with businesses downtown, that, we are seeing some movement in that, in terms of just It may be displacement, I don't know, I can't get too far over my skis here, but we are seeing that we are having an impact with, even on the citation level, because by engaging with, I think we've written several hundred citations this past year, that began to engage us in conversation with people, because we're now issuing them a citation, purpose citation. We can have, do some search, do some identifying of them, et cetera, et cetera. So, the legislature's taken a hard look at this. We're having a lot of conversations with the senators and representatives. So there'll be a lot more to come, I think, probably in the next 45, 60 days. But it's not something that has been easy to quantify in that regard because of some of the limitations around 110.
But it's still one of the major issues your officers are seeing.
Oh, yeah, the fentanyl crisis is no secret. It's a huge issue. So we're continuing to be challenged by that. But I'm encouraged, if you notice, we're doing, once again, it's a collaborative effort. We're doing more stuff with outreach workers, partnering with people. But yeah, it continues to be a challenge for sure.
Okay, can I still ask a question to Mayor Wheeler? You talked of reducing dangerous RVs. Do people live in those RVs? You yourself have said removing people's camps doesn't work.
So it depends on the circumstances. If that camp happens to be an active meth lab, as some of these are, I say get rid of it as quickly as possible, and it has to be remediated. Part of the problem here is for the ones that we are removing, a lot of them are burned out hulks. Many of them do not meet even the most basic environmental standards. Some of them are used for illicit activity, including drug distribution, drug manufacturing, and prostitution. And so we focus on those that are the most dangerous. If there are people living in them, we always provide outreach opportunities. And I think Mike had illustrated some of the lead work we do before we go in and tow these RVs. But the ones that we are actually towing, a lot of them are extremely problematic. Many of them are hazmat sites, and they have to be disposed of properly.
Connor, do you want to go?
Yeah, a question for the chief. How's resources looking this year when it comes to staffing? And also, will there be enough staffing to possibly continue those walking beats in downtown during high traffic times like spring break or summer break?
Well, we got more people we know what to do with, so don't print that, please don't print that. No, I'd like to talk about resources is time, money, and people, right? That's when I use the term resource management, we're talking about time, money, and people. I'm greatly encouraged, once again, by the mayor and council support around hiring. We had a high level of interest last year, and we're seeing continued interest in applicants. The state has moved quickly down to DPSST to enhance their capacity to take in more recruits, so that's really beneficial. Swore in a brand new officer a week ago, even in the snow and ice, so we're not letting the elements prevent us from bringing people on board. With that being said, we're still in a time of transition. We have a high number of people eligible to retire this year. And that's just sort of the nature of the cycle. But I'm committed to seeing our organization really as one bureau. And so that's why I mentioned with the Walking Beach, we had over 200 members of the police bureau from my position on down participate. And, we're going to continue to have those conversations. How do we maximize the entire police bureau? I was out at East Precinct afternoons recently, and I said, hey, I know that you folks see yourself as East Precinct afternoon shift, and I need them to take that ownership for that part of the city, that part of the community, for their role and responsibility. But when I look at the organization, from me on down, I see about 790 sworn people right now. That's several hundred short of where I want to be, but that's the number we have. And I see a couple, 300 professional staff that are critical to our success. So, we're going to continue to lean into hiring. We are hiring. Make sure that's out there. We're hiring, but we're going to really maximize what we have in front of us. As it relates to walking beats, and other initiatives, yes, I'm very confident and hopeful that we're going to be able to do that, continue those. I've already been projecting into the spring, thinking about other parts of the city. I could see St. John's, Kenton. You get out on the east side, Park Rose, Division, Mississippi, Albina. There's so many places and the feedback has been so beneficial, both internally and externally. It was funny, one of the cops said to one of the chiefs recently, did you think that the chief knew that this would be so enjoyable for the police as well as for the community? That, it became something that people wanted to do and be a part of because of that opportunity to have that interaction in a different way. And I absolutely want to build on that and anticipate being able to do that come this spring.
All right, let's quickly, we have to get the mayor to council and the chief has a meeting, so let's go to Alex and we'll get to this side of the room.
Very
Get
good
wrapped up.
question. I'm curious if there are any factors outside of police work that you see contributing to a drop in crime.
Well, context is everything. I mean, that's a great question. You know, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that. I mean, that's a really good question. I would not, as we said, I certainly would not say this is all, you know, success based on the shoulders of the police bureau. So, you know, if there is other factors, it might be, and this is a little bit before my time, but both the leadership and the mayor of Mike around bringing folks together in a different way than we were in, say, 21 or 22. I'm speculating, but just based on that. You know, I have conversations with chiefs and sheriffs around the country, and there does seem to be, you know, maybe a more cohesive recognition by communities, not just in Portland, but other places, that, you know, we have to take a different approach to really make sure that our cities are safe and enjoyable places for people to live. But that's a great question. I'll think about it a little bit. You want to take a stab at that?
So I don't know if all of you know, I've been your fire chief here in the city of Portland originally. And I used to tell the mayor all the time that vibrant cities don't burn and vibrant neighborhoods don't burn. And I have a different role now in community safety. And, you know, vibrant neighborhoods are safe neighborhoods. It's really about looking at hot spots where things are occurring for us, non-policing wise, and understanding what's driving issues there. It's if you study hot spots and what drives crime, it's happening where there's poverty, where people don't feel like they have a place, they don't feel comfortable there. It's hard to earn wages there. They may be blighted. You know, those things drive crime. And it's our responsibility as the city to identify where those locations are and put plans together to, you know, change that. And that takes some time. It's not something that happens overnight. Those are long-term investments. It really does take a lot of community engagement, because what I might want in my community might not be what you want in your community. And so you really need to understand where people live, what they want, what would be vibrant, what means vibrancy to them, and then start to make those investments. So that's one really solid strategy that we can use as a city that's non-policing.
I want to just add one thing to that, and Stephanie, because it's a great question. The work we do here at City Hall is resolving a problem that's already happened. By the time we send out the police bureau, they are reacting to some other systematic failure in our society. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I have no monopoly on the truth. I have no idea whether I'm right or whether I'm completely wrong. But education, opportunity, family support, and as Mike just said, where do you go? There, community support, neighborhood level support. If those things were all, and I would add healthcare, by the way, to this. If all of those things were working really, really well in America, I don't think we'd see the uniquely horrible gun violence situation that we have in America. And of course, we could talk about the easy access to firearms, but it's hard to put that aside at this moment. It's really these other issues. Once somebody takes up a gun and decides, I'm going to end somebody else's life, somebody who I don't even know who they are, there have been a series of failures already. And so I hope that the work that we're doing at the municipal level is combined with the good healthcare work that gets done at the county level, that is combined with the resourcing and financing support that the legislature can bring from the federal government, combined with ideally a functional federal government that starts to take care of the people of this country in a way that reduces all these problems that are sequentially falling to the street level in cities all across America. That's my view today. I may change my mind 6 months from now.
I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing? Alex, if I understand your question, you're asking what are we doing besides a police first approach, and has that anything to do with the crime reduction that we're seeing? Yeah, Mike Myers just outlined all of the many things we're doing through OVP with outreach, with, ceasefire may work with police, but how they deploy resources doesn't always work with police. Our CEPTED programs through Safe Blocks, that is to make the environment safer, and we do note that that has a correlation to reductions in crime. So I don't want anyone to leave with the impression that we're not doing all of those things at the same time.
All right, really quick, we'll do coin and we'll do fox, and we're done.
And you mentioned community interventions with homelessness. Is there one of those two that you see moving the needle more? And quickly, do you think that Portland can return to a level of crime that we saw in 2018 and 2016?
Skylar, that may be, you didn't hear it. I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer that question. Because I don't know which one is more.
Whether community interventions or homeless interventions, which ones you see having more progress?
Sure. Skylar Brucker-Knapp, I'm a senior policy advisor for the mayor. So I think that's a false binary. I think we have to do all the things at the same time. So as Stephanie mentioned, we're working on all those things simultaneously, and we think it's important to address every single issue we see in the community, and I think they play into each other. So the CEPTED design, we work on lighting up safe blocks. That helps with crime prevention. It also helps with letting folks know they can walk safely at night and not have necessarily encampments or RVs with folks who are engaged in nefarious activities in those spaces. So we want to make sure we're addressing all of those problems in the community, and we also need places for people to go. So we can't just tell people you can't be here. We also need something to offer them. And that task location is one option. We're developing 2 more. We also have our Safe Rest Villages where people can go, and then we're also connected within the community. So we're working with Multnomah County to build that homelessness response system that is more like what we've developed on the city side for crime prevention in the homelessness space. So incorporating all of the healthcare, housing, and homelessness responses that happen within this community.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to fox and we'll wrap it up.
This is a question for Mayor Wheeler, just on the ice storm and response and everything. Can you speak to conversations with the county on storm response and maybe the decisions to close shelters and prepare for weather events?
Yeah, so we have a meeting between the emergency management group and leadership at the city and their counterparts at the county on Thursday. And there are a number of recommendations that our emergency manager has made based on what they've seen that we think can help improve the process going forward. And so I look forward to that. I want people to also know that the chair and I get along just fine. We talk all the time, virtually daily, and we do have disagreements, and it is our job to resolve those disagreements and make sure that our governments work well together and collaborate. And I want the public to know that both the chair and I understand that fully. We have to be on the same page. We have to have clear understanding about what the planning process is and who does what. And when it comes to an actual emergency, we have to have contingency plans in place to be able to address any eventuality, including completely inaccurate weather forecasting. And by the way, that's not a pot shot at weather forecasters. This is a very difficult set of circumstances, meteorological circumstances, and I sort of felt sorry for the weather forecasters being put on the spot every morning. But we need to build into our planning process the possibility that what we experience on the ground is going to be much more significant. In other words, planned surge capacity, if you will, particularly at the shelters. I also want to say this, while there's been a lot of attention to that aspect, there were a lot of things that went really, really well. And I particularly want to acknowledge the work of our first responders, the Police Bureau, the Fire Bureau, the good folks at PBOT, the utility workers, many, many others who are out there 24/7, day after day after day, making sure that our roads were clear, that people had access to medical services who needed them, to make sure that the power got on as quickly as possible, that water continued to flow to homes as quickly as possible. And they did a really, really good job. And so I hope the bigger picture is remembered here, that again, ordinary people who have ordinary jobs went out there while the rest of us were huddled around our candles, and they were there all night working to recover this community as quickly as possible. And I really appreciate them. And I did not hesitate to say when I ran into one of them, on the streets, I would thank them personally for their hard work, because they sacrificed a lot in the last week, and they deserve credit for the work they did. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.